Most Swiss watches are actually made in China.
I'm the world's most famous Swiss watchmaker, and I can confirm that most Swiss watches are made in China.
Rolex, Richard Mille, like anything, just name it, you'll see it.
The gold standard of watchmaking is Swiss made. And when you think of luxury watches, Switzerland is the name of the game. Brands like Rolex, Patek Philippe, Omega, and Audemars Piguet dominate the scene, and for good reason. These names are known for precision, heritage, exclusivity, luxury, and prestige. According to Chrono24, Rolex sits at the top, followed closely by Omega and Patek Philippe, with Audemars Piguet and Breitling rounding out the elite. These brands aren't just selling watches, they're selling a story. One of alpine craftsmanship, centuries-old expertise, and a reputation that makes you feel like you're wearing history on your wrist. That Swiss-made label, it's a badge of honor, legally protected in Switzerland to mean that the production cost happens there, with final assembly and inspection in the country. However, that's where it gets a little bit sketchy. That label has rules, and they might not be as strict as you may think. When you see a label that says Swiss-made, your brain would automatically think that products with the label are entirely made in Switzerland. But the Swiss Federal Act on the Protection of Trademarks and Indications of Source says that if 60% of the manufacturing costs and 50% of the essential manufacturing step happens in Switzerland, then a good or service may be designated Swiss-made. So theoretically, you could source components elsewhere like China, where manufacturing costs are much cheaper, assemble them in Geneva, and still get that fancy label. This rule is mostly associated with watches or timepieces made in Switzerland. Their law considers a watch to be Swiss-made if the technical development is carried out in Switzerland, like if the movement is Swiss, or if the movement is cased up in Switzerland, or if the final inspection of the watch is conducted by the manufacturer in Switzerland. Talk about legalities and loopholes. Now, everyone knows Rolex, one of the most prestigious Swiss watch brands based in Geneva, Switzerland. It's particularly taking heat because of the rumors and allegations buzzing around the internet and social media about how parts of their watches may be outsourced from affordable manufacturing to maximize profit margins. Whistleblowers have been spilling the beans on TikTok, creating buzz about Swiss brands that have been capitalizing the Swiss-made rule, such as Omega, Heuer, Tissot, Longines, and so on.
So what I know to be true, and having seen with my own beady little eyes while working at Swatch Group, who own Omega, Longines, Tissot, Hamilton, yada yada yada, is that they have bracelets, dials, cases, hands, movement components, all made in China. I've seen the packaging for them, I've seen the country of origin stamped on them. I know that to be true 100%.
But here's the thing. There's no hard evidence that Rolex is doing this. Watch Time, a trusted source in the watch world, confirms Rolex makes its movements and most components in-house at its Swiss facilities in Geneva and Bienne. They're obsessive about control, even crafting their own gold alloys. That said, the controversy isn't only about proof, but also about your perception. When you hear these rumors, it plants a seed of doubt. Suddenly, that $10,000 Rolex doesn't feel as exclusive if you're imagining parts coming from a factory next to knockoff handbags. Brands like Swatch might play looser with the rules, but Rolex? They've built a fortress around their reputation. But the fact that this loophole exists makes you question, how much of that Swiss-made prestige is real? And how much is just clever marketing? That's where China's role in the watch world comes into play. Welcome to the price of perception, and this is how Swiss-made may or may not really be Swiss-made.
Are Rolex watches made in China? This is the question I'm getting asked all the time, getting tagged in videos about, and it's mainly due to all the Chinese factory expose videos where they're talking about luxury goods being made in China.
So why does China keep coming up when the talks are about cheap manufacturing? Well, the simple answer is China isn't just another player in watchmaking. It's practically the world's watch factory. Shenzhen, a city right next to Hong Kong, is the beating heart of global watch production, churning out components and full watches for countless brands. Europostar says a huge chunk of the world's watch parts come from Shenzhen's factories. People's Daily reports that China produces about 80% of the world's watches, with Shenzhen alone accounting for 42% of that output. We're talking over 1 billion watches a year, from cheap digital ones to high-end pieces for mid-tier brands. Cities like Zhengzhou and Guangzhou are also big players with factories that have mastered precision manufacturing at a fraction of Swiss costs. Why does this matter? Well, when you know most watch parts globally come from China, it's not a huge leap to wonder if even the big players like Rolex are dipping into that supply chain. And that's the genius of perception. You might still pay $15,000 for a Rolex because of the Swiss mystique, but if you start picturing Chinese factories, it makes a lot of difference in your perception about the brand. Adding to the drama, a former Omega employee dubbed the Watch Regulator, who has 70,000 followers on TikTok, posted a video claiming that parts for brands like Omega are made in China and shipped to Switzerland for assembly. He says he was fired for spilling the beans.
I got fired from Swatch Group today for talking about their products on TikTok. Before we get into the reasons why I was fired, just for the people that don't know, Swatch Group is a large Swiss watch group that comprises brands like Omega, Longines, Tissot, Breguet, Blancpain, Rado, Hamilton, and of course Swatch.
And to prove his telling the truth, he showed a receipt of an order made by his former employer, Omega, with spare parts coming from China. If that wasn't proof, I don't know what is. In April 2025, a TikToker named Sean shared his TikTok video about how to go watch shopping if you're a first-timer in Guangzhou. The video reveals that watch boutiques sell knockoff Rolex watches, ranging from datejusts, submariners, and daytonas. The crazy part is that not only he gave suggestions on how to spot fake from genuine ones, but also the TikToker said that in Guangzhou, you will find it hard to tell if it's fake or not because they look very real. He also made a sarcastic remark that the only problem you will have as a buyer is the low-quality movement that will be sold at a high price.
If this is the first time for you to buy watches in Guangzhou, that's the information you need to know. Watches come in different sizes. A small dial makes your wrist slimmer, while a larger one makes you a stronger area. First of all, you need to determine your budget range. The Rolex datejust is the best choice for cost-effective. For more advanced options, there's sports and professional models. Let's look at the submariners tier. Daytona, a wrist match, equipped with 3-eye dial, has high value for collection. The difference between authentic and fake products lies in that the scale edge of the genuine ceramic ring is sharp, while the fake watch is often blurred. However, when you come to Guangzhou, you cannot see any problems just by looking at the appearance. What you need to be careful about is that the low quality movement inside will be sold at a high price.
Speaking of knockoffs, super clones are high-end replicas that look, feel, and even tick almost exactly like a real Rolex. These aren't the cheap fakes you'd spot a mile away, they're on a whole other level. Websites like Clean Factory Watch and Replica Rolex Expert boast that these clones use Swiss clone movements, 904L stainless steel, and sapphire crystals, materials straight out of Rolex's playbook. Some are so convincing that even seasoned watchmakers might need a magnifying glass to tell them apart, or in most cases, open the Rolex watch itself to check. In an interview done by John Perez with Apollo the Original podcast, he explained how the Turks and the Chinese are so scary good at replicating luxury watches, especially the Rolexes. From the watch itself, the boxes and the cards, to the certificate and the ticking sound of the watch. And it's become a lucrative business for them. He also mentioned that the most replicated Rolex model is the datejust, because it's the most basic and affordable of all the Rolexes, making them easy to sell. And despite being in the industry for 15 years, he himself got scammed by a Daytona super clone and took a loss of $20,000 when he couldn't sell it.
But you would recognize up to 100% that that's fake.
No,
Really?
no. It became too crazy for that.
So what do you do?
You have to open it and check the movement.
Oh, so I mean, you once
Yeah.
you open it,
Yeah, once you open it and you check the movement, you gotta double check. You gotta make sure everything is correct.
but once you open it and see the movement, it's so obvious that that's a fake.
Some of them, movement is like obvious it's fake because they don't have the same finishes as the real one. Some of them, they try to get even like close to it, but you'll always find something. There's always something that they missed.
But the movements are good.
Movements are
Automatic.
good. Yeah, automatic, same exact things. If I show you a real one and a fake one, you'll tell me, okay, I don't see the difference. But if I give you a loop and I tell you, okay, look here and look there, then you'll find the difference and you'll see, oh, okay, now I see it.
The scammers have become super good in replicating the Swiss watches. Even the seasoned watchmakers and experts can get fooled. Miracle Watch Pro explains that before 2018, most replicas were obvious fakes and easy to spot. Wrong fonts, wonky dials, you name it. But Chinese factories have leveled up, using cutting-edge tech to make clones that are scarily close to the real deal. However, the real reason why super clones have become a thing is that not everyone's got that kind of cash, and a genuine Rolex can cost as much as a car. It would take forever for most people, and save their hard-earned money to be able to afford a Rolex, to feel its prestige and experience its heritage, even if it's a fake experience. And snagging a super clone submariner for $300 to $1,300? That looks and feels exactly the same as the $15,000 genuine piece. It's a great bargain for them. These super clones mess with the value of a real Rolex. On one hand, you're paying for Rolex's heritage, precision, and that exclusivity, stuff a clone can't replicate. On the other, if a $500 clone looks and works just as well to the average eye, paying for a $15,000 price tag doesn't make sense, and the allure of the real thing might fade. But here's the big question that's probably lurking in your mind. If super clones are indeed almost 100% identical to that of the genuine ones, it fuels the suspicion and the possibility that Swiss watches may actually be outsourcing components from other countries, such as China, because it's cheaper, which makes sense, to maximize the company's profit margin. And since the Swiss-made rule does allow some wiggle room that's up to 40% of production costs can come from abroad, it only just makes sense to take advantage of this rule. Rohrstein even pointed out on his post why replicas are as good as the real deal. It's because the manufacturing is outsourced.
Most Swiss watches are actually made in China, and the reason that replicas often look just as good as the original is that they are made in the same factory. Let me explain what the Swiss companies do to kind of squeeze you out of money. So when you think Swiss made, you're imagining this bespoke factory in Switzerland with mountains in the background, with artisans working really hard to make exquisite timepieces. That's not the case. They make almost every component of most Swiss watches in China. And these are major brands. I'm talking Omega, Tag Heuer, Tissot. All of these companies do most of their manufacturing in China and don't tell you as a consumer. So how do they get away with calling it Swiss made if most of it is manufactured in China? Well, it's a little loophole that they have in Swiss manufacturing laws, where as long as 60% of the total cost of construction happens in Switzerland, they can call it Swiss made. But think about how it works in China. It doesn't cost a lot to manufacture. Almost all of the movement's the thing that makes this thing tick, is done in China. And then they'll take one component that might be a little bit more expensive. Usually it's something like the rotor, the thing that makes it automatically wind. And they'll just slap that on and they'll make sure that that is 60% of the cost. Now, it also has to be manufactured in Switzerland, but what does that actually mean? It just means that they have to put this little crystal on here, the lens of the watch. As long as they slap that on in Switzerland and add the rotor here in the back, and then some engineer in Switzerland originally designed it, they can call it a Swiss watch. So again, if you're paying $6,000-7,000 for a watch, you should know that it's mostly made in China, and it probably costs less than $200 to make. And frankly, I mean, not that I should tell you to go buy a replica watch, but legitimately they are made with the same machinery, same tools as a Swiss-made watch.
In his post, he explained how Swiss watches takes advantage of the Swiss-made rule for their own gain, selling consumers with heritage, prestige, and exclusivity for thousands of dollars when the watches are made from cheap manufacturing that only cost less than $200. It's crazy, right? So what's Rolex's take on these made-in-China rumors? Well, they haven't dropped a press release specifically calling out the TikTok videos, but their actions and words speak volumes. Rolex is crystal clear about one thing. Every single watch they make is crafted in Switzerland. Their official website proudly states that all the essential components of a Rolex watch are designed and produced in-house at their facilities in Geneva, Bienne, Plan-les-Ouates, and Cherbourg, all in Switzerland. They're not only just meeting the Swiss-made standard, but also they're going all in and making everything from movements to gold alloys themselves. In 2024, Rolex even announced a new billion-dollar factory in Mille, Switzerland, set to open in 2029. They've also got temporary factories in Romont and Villaz-Saint-Pierre to keep up with demand, all in Switzerland. Despite the noise, Rolex's overall reputation remains rock solid. In fact, as of 2025, Rolex still dominates the luxury watch market, representing about a third of the entire Swiss watch industry, according to Revolution Watch. But why no direct response to the rumors? Well, probably because Rolex doesn't see the need to dignify unproven claims. However, perception is perception, and your perception matters as a consumer, especially in the luxury world. Even though there's still no hard evidence that Rolex is indeed outsourcing its watches components, the fact that these TikTokers blew their horns about Swiss luxury watches being made in China, they will continue to add fuel to fire. While the made in China rumors might have shaken some consumer confidence, Rolex's reputation as a symbol of Swiss craftsmanship remains intact. Their sales might be feeling the pinch from broader market trends, but the brand's long-term value isn't crumbling. If anything, these rumors highlight how much perception drives luxury pricing. You're not just buying a watch, you're buying into a story of exclusivity, heritage, and precision. And Rolex knows that story better than anyone. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please like and subscribe to our channel to find more stories that change your perceptions, which affects value and price tags. I'll see you next time.